and welcome back to episode 86 of the Impulso podcast by Momentum Works. So, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about a company that we talk about quite often, actually, and that would be Luckin Coffee. And the reason why
What's
we're
new about
talking about
Luckin?
Luckin Coffee is they've actually opened its 20th thousand store in Beijing. So, on 18 July, so about 2 weeks ago, Luckin actually opened its 20th thousand store.
I even don't know how to pronounce that. 20,000.
20th, 20,000,
Okay, but anyway, they have lots of stores.
Yes. So
They have a big ceremony in Beijing, and I think lots of people showed up. Yeah, so was it a surprise?
it's not very surprising, right? So we've talked about Luckin Coffee a lot. So in episode 76 of the podcast, I think we talked about Luckin Coffee versus Starbucks in China. And Luckin Coffee is something we talk a lot about in the Lowdown blog as well as in our Sip, Innovate, Repeat programs that we hold. So we know that they've been growing very rapidly, right? So it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, so for the whole, from end of Q1 2023 to end of Q1 2024, they added like 9,239 stores to the store count. So, to reach 18,590 stores. So breaking the 20,000 mark, it's just a matter of time. And they barely celebrated that 10,000th store mark about a year ago. So yeah, it's fast.
It's very fast. There was one, was it last year? They were opening like 1,000 stores
A month.
every month. Yeah, every month.
And obviously, in a previous episode of the podcast, we talked a lot about, why they could do that. Part of the reason is a lot of the operations are actually digital, are actually automated. They have lots of data that they have procured from various providers. The map service providers, for delivery platforms, etc., which allow them to decide where to open a store before sending a team to find out whether they could secure a location, which is different from how traditional retail works, right? You send a guy with a stool, usually the boss, and to sit in the mall for like 3 days, then you realize, okay, good, that's the spot. But they use data, yeah.
So I think when we talk about Luckin, we know that they are a very data-driven company, and that's how they've built their operations, right? And they're very tech-savvy. So when you visit most Luckin stores, you don't see a barista making coffee using an espresso machine. It's just a normal coffee machine, and they press a button.
What is normal coffee machine?
Like, not a normal coffee machine, but a simpler coffee machine.
So
Where
basically,
you just press a button.
most likely you just need to press a button. In a normal cafe, you have handcrafted coffee, right? You would have one machine to grind the coffee,
Grind the beans.
grind the beans, and then you move it to another machine to add the steam and water to make the coffee, and then you add milk using some technique to make it nice. What's that called? Latte art?
Latte art.
Latte art. Yeah. So Luckin didn't do any of this because
they want it to be efficient, right? So it takes them less than 2 minutes to prepare a cup of coffee.
I actually know the specific KPI they have, which is each employee in each store needs to make 17 cups of drinks, whatever drinks that is, every half an hour. So translates roughly into less than 2 minutes.
Less than 2 minutes, right? But in their latest store in Beijing, which is their 20th thousand store, they've actually introduced handcrafted coffee for the first time. But their machine looks a lot simpler than other coffee shop machines, even though this is handcrafted. No?
It looks like a noodle maker in China, right?
I mean, you
sausage maker or whatever.
Compare this to like the huge espresso machines that you see at Starbucks. This looks very simple.
It's just grinding machine, right? But I don't see any coffee bean in it. Okay, interesting. We check the prices, and they actually sell this like freshly made handcrafted coffee at a price level which is a little bit more expensive than Starbucks. So we don't know yet. This is like a marketing gimmick for them to say that, okay, there's a showcase. You can have good coffee at Luckin, or it's something that they want to test and roll out at larger scale, because at some point in time, at their price level, their customer segment, they're going to saturate it. Would they go and move up to occupy the third space that Starbucks is currently occupying in China? I think it's very possible.
That's interesting because most of their stores in China don't have seating areas, right? Or is that something they've been introducing recently?
Are very small, and some of the stores would have like, I don't know, 3-4 tables, tall chairs, etc. Some stores have sitting area, but it's definitely uncommon. I think it depends on what kind of real estate they can secure. But most of the orders come from takeaway and the delivery.
And of course, as Luckin Coffee is scaling very, very rapidly, they are also going deeper into the supply chain, right? So they've started buying beans from Brazil. I think, which is the Brazilian guy from the company?
There are a couple of Brazilian guys, and the image on the bottom right, you would have I think the head of commercial section of the Brazilian embassy. And what's his name? Ariano Giacomo. He got I think that's his name. So basically, he showed up with some of his colleagues, and obviously, the reason why they take it so seriously is Luckin Coffee committed to buy 120,000 tons of coffee beans from Brazil over the next 2 years. And the deal was signed when the vice president of Brazil, Alckmin, was in China. And I think the media in China even published an interview with him where he said, "Oh, I drink 20 cups of coffee every day." So, I mean, it shows that first, Brazilians are passionate about coffee, and second, it is a really, really big deal, right? So, how do they process all this coffee?
So we know that they also have the largest coffee processing facility in China.
So that processes about 45,000 tons of coffee beans. That's the largest single facility in China. They also have other facilities in other provinces. So this facility is actually, I mean, as you can see, it's actually in the province where I'm from. And one thing, I mean, Jiangsu, which is next to Shanghai. And one thing specific about this province is, if you look at this map, it's entirely flat land. You don't have any mountain at all.
Is that good for coffee bean processing?
No, it's good for.
But in addition to deepening their supply chain, they've also started experimenting or trying different streams of revenue, right? So I think we've spoken about this in the previous episode where we spoke about Luckin, but we know that they've also started selling on supermarkets, and not just supermarkets, right? They also sell online now. Is it Taobao?
Yeah. I think they have like gone into the supply chain and made. I mean, with the skill and everything, they made their sort of product competitive from pricing point of view, and obviously it's very natural for them to extend into different channels. So they've been selling instant coffee in the supermarket shelves. They have filtered coffee as well, and I think my cousin buys all his like instant coffee consumption from e-commerce with the Luckin brand. I said, "Why do you buy Luckin brand?" He said, "This is the brand I know. The others are Tim Hortons, etc." So I don't know them that well. And I don't know whether we should trust those brands. I think the last time we went to China for the immersion, we brought a few boxes of the instant coffee capsules back, and we put that in office, and all those were consumed by Elodie over like 2 weeks. Our colleague, yeah.
I will ask her.
She drinks lots of coffee.
I'll ask her later if the capsule tastes the same as the actual Luckin coffee.
I think she's just going for the caffeine. Just
the hit.
It's like how you go for bubble tea. Well,
that's true. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
So of course we say Luckin's branding seems to be really strong in China, right? So your cousin buys Luckin from e-commerce platforms just because it's the only brand, or it's the most recognizable brand that he knows.
It's a brand he knows, and he sees Luckin outlets everywhere, and it's obviously the brand that you feel that you can trust.
And of course, we know that Luckin has also been exploring with brand partnerships to probably sort of further increase their brand awareness, brand recognition in China, right? So they collaborated with Garfield.
With they signed a deal with Garfield. Garfield's fiction.
Garfield, no.
Oh, really?
It's like, yes, they signed a deal with Garfield.
I think Garfield would be too lazy to even move the pen to sign the deal. But anyway, so Garfield name is in China, and you can see them across some of the Luckin stores. They also signed with the cartoon figures. Do you know them?
I don't know them. Maybe they are Chinese cartoon.
Maybe.
I've never seen them before. And then also this poster here as well, which I thought was some manga, but turns out to be Journey to the East, West.
Journey to the West.
Journey to the West.
Oh gosh.
Journey to the West. So that's actually Sun Wukong, the Monkey King.
Journey to the East is to Japan, and Journey to the West is to India, where you get a real mantra.
Because every time I go to the East, I will say, "Oh, Journey to the East."
And Jack Ma specifically said that, I mean, Journey to the West, the important thing is that no matter how hard the journey is, no matter how many challenges you go through, I mean, you don't change your direction, which is West. That's how it should be. But anyway, so Journey to the West, this is just sidetrack a little bit. This is a famous movie made in Hong Kong by Stephen Chow, like kind of sad life story, which touched the heart of lots of people back in 1990s. And I think they used this to appeal. I mean, this is not appealing to the Gen Z and Gen Alpha. This is with people who were born in 1980s. So that shows they are exploring different types of demographics with different partnerships. And as we have learned, and these partnerships do not really cost them much, and because they have the distribution and the scale to negotiate a good deal, and also these brands would need them to reach out to different people. We talked about multi last year, right?
Yes. So last year
did you try that?
No, I didn't. I don't know why I didn't go to Luckin at all when we were in China, by the way.
You-
I was drinking bubble tea. I
Well,
didn't drink any Luckin.
so our colleague Wei Han had, I think, a cup of Multi, and then she wrote the e-commerce report.
We had we didn't have Maltai. We had Baijiu, but not Maltai Luckin coffee.
That's fake.
Yeah, we
Anyway,
had the fake. So speaking of brand partnerships, they also did some in Singapore, right? So we went to buy. I don't know who went to buy, actually, not me.
Mm.
Somebody in the office went to buy Luckin Coffee, and they actually did a collaboration with Sesame Street. So they have like Cookie Monster on their cup, and then they had like little cup holders with so cutesy with the Sesame Street characters as well.
Yeah, so I know people in our office, I will not name who, and who actually collect all these different cups because they have different characters on it, right? It's kind of cute.
Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah.
Jiangnan doesn't know the Sesame Street characters, by the way.
I grew up watching Journey to the West, not East, and not Sesame Street. Yeah.
So, since we're talking a little bit about Singapore, this is also something that we've mentioned a lot, probably in our Coffee in Southeast Asia report, as well as in our Sip Innovate Repeat programs, that the coffee, tea, freshly made drinks market in Singapore is very, very saturated, right? The
So,
competition is fierce.
so these are a couple of photos we took last weekend actually. So on the left, you will see a outside of a mall. So you have three F&B stores, Liho Tea, which is local, right? I mean, is the
Local. It was the ex-franchisee of Gongcha who broke off, and then they opened as Liho.
fairly successful in the country, I would say.
They are more mass market, so Liho is one of the cheaper bubble teas that you can find in Singapore.
Mm.
Yeah.
And here is interesting, right? You see Liho right next to Luckin, which has a bigger shop front, and right next to Mixue, which, I mean, if you look at the design, it's actually, in a way, kind of similar to Luckin. But Mixue here appeals to the masses. And on the right is the underground mall in Singapore. Over the weekend, you have like tons of people queuing to buy a $1 ice cream for Mixue. And I think they're doing very, very well. Mixue is a company we covered extensively in our F&B and new retail coverage.
We also have a report called
Sure
Who is
report.
Mixue, where on our website where we examine the company. So Mixue is actually a very interesting company to look at, right? Because most people think of them as just a F&B company, but when we went to analyze their reports and all, they actually operate a little more like a supply chain company.
They focus a lot on supply chain, and the store concept and everything is sort of cookie cutter, minimal, and easy for franchises to do, but they really do sell a lot of ice cream and milk tea.
Yes.
Mm.
So you can't see it in this photo here, but opposite this Mixue in the mall, there's actually also a Luckin Coffee.
Mm.
So you can see that a lot of these competitors are normally in very close proximity to one another as well.
Yeah, which is interesting because in China, Luckin and Mixue are very different. And Mixue is mass appeal, and Luckin is a little bit more premium. But in Singapore, I think Mixue seems to position itself a little bit up compared to what they do in China. I learned that the Mixue could still make a profit if they sell the ice cream, which is now retailing at $1. If they sell it at 60 cents, they will still be profitable. So that shows how much scale they have with the supply chain. 40,000 stores, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, the kids will go, wow, if I could buy ice cream for 60. Also, it's double the size of like a McDonald's vanilla cone.
Mhm.
And 60 cents.
McDonald's lowered their price. It used to be like 150, now it's 120, and sometimes it's $1.
150 is ridiculous for McDonald's ice cream.
Okay.
But speaking of fierce competition, another famous Chinese brand has also recently entered Singapore, right? So this is Chagee.
Chagee had a similar story to Gongcha, right? In the past, they were
Yes,
here.
they were here, and then their ex-franchisee broke off and started their own bubble tea chain. It's
Called
called
Armpit?
Empty.
Oh, empty.
So you know the like and sign, I think, like Amp
Okay.
Tea.
Oh, empty.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess Chagee has decided to enter the market. Is to a franchise by themselves. We
This
don't
is self-operated, and they
self-operated.
have actually assembled a quite, what's the right word to say it? I mean, I wouldn't say lavish, but a quite big team. So their general manager for Singapore was just left as CEO for Foodpanda. And their recruiter for the region used to work as a headhunter for Google for 9 years. And they hired, I think, lots of branding professionals for famous brands. If you look at lots of what they do, it's very professionally done. And some people argue that, hey, you're just a bubble tea company. Why do you spend all this? But it has this great momentum in China. So jasmine milk, green milk tea is very popular across the board. So I actually went to check out when they had soft opening last week. I think in Plaza Singapura, one of the malls in Singapore. So by 10 o'clock, before they opened, there was already a queue, and we can see that there are also more than 10 employees in a store, which is not that big. So it shows that every employee was properly trained. So it shows that they have deep control of their operations. And this company, I spoke with some veterans of F&B and retail in the country, and everyone believes that, okay, this company is probably destined to succeed because they have that brand power, they have that supply chain, they have that image. What can make it difficult for them in Singapore is if they encounter any trouble in China because they're expanding fast. I think it's the same thing people have been arguing about Luckin. Luckin had its trouble, but then recovered. And Chagee is in a seemingly invincible mode. Will it face any challenges? We don't know. But as long as I think they're doing well in China, I think they will do well in other markets.
But I think now Chagee, by the time this episode is out, Chagee would have hard launched in Orchard as well. So they've actually been doing a promotion with Shopee and Grab where they're selling so they are famous for their green milk tea, right? So they've been selling vouchers for their green milk tea for $1, which I bought and I'm going to buy Chagee.
For $1, that's
yeah, it's really good. Yeah, it's really good. But I think like you mentioned, Chagee sort of already had its brand was already known in Singapore because obviously previously they were in the market, and even after they left, I know a lot of Singaporeans who would go to Johor Bahru just to buy Chagee.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they used to have this promotion where I think on the 10th of every month, they would give you like a free small gift with the Chagee cup. So at the bottom of the cup, it's like you can open it and then they would give you like a small lipstick or something. They had that promotion. Yeah, it's a very small. So they have a very strong branding. A lot of Singaporeans already know and like their brand. So
I feel that we should do something more about Chagee because it's a very interesting case study. I had a chance to.
Who is Chagee Report? Coming soon.
I had a chance to talk to the founder back in 2021 before Chagee started like surging. Back then, I don't know. I mean, I was at the panel. It seems that many other people I've met who were like F&B veterans would look down upon him because that guy didn't have any education. When he was 18, he could hardly read. I mean, which is very rare in China at this juncture because government makes sure everyone has basic education. So he became a like worker in some of these like beverage stores when he was very young, and people believe that he has learned a lot of things during that experience, which I mean not ordinary, but normal founders who have been through the university route, the prof, like, investment banking, whatever consulting, he would have very, very different understanding about how to make things work. And this is also like lots of the early entrepreneurs in F&B in Singapore, anywhere. They just started with the store and they learned things in a hard way. And
yeah, I think they're always more successful because they know how things actually work on the ground. They are not so caught up in like, theories or strategies that I studied in school. Like, they actually know what's happening and they're able to turn that into actionable insights for their own business.
Yes.
And that's what helps them grow.
What's the new Starbucks strategy? Triple shot reinvention with 2 pumps.
Yeah, like
amazing.
That's what educated people give you.
Yeah, because they need
fancy words.
No, but they need this to communicate across organization, right? A large organization. How do you make simple words? But I think the Chagee founder has something different. I've discussed a lot with different Chinese investors who have either invested in Chagee or regrettably missed that investment. So there's lots of perspectives. So yeah, I think maybe we could do a bigger piece about this.
A deep dive into Chagee. We buy Chagee and then we talk about it. So I think
Joshua, who's behind the camera, you know that Sabrina consumes 40% of the bubble tea, and she always finds ways to consume more bubble tea.
I brought him to buy bubble tea yesterday.
Oh, already?
Yeah.
His first day?
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Yes. So I think we've seen not just Chagee, right? But we've seen a lot of Chinese F&B brands entering the Southeast Asian market. And of course, they all face their own issues, right? But be it supply chain, branding, having to operate in a different environment. And we see that, of course, some of them enter as self-operated stores. Some of them have entered with franchisees, helping them expand their network. So this leads to my next point, which is Momentum Works is actually doing a food and beverage immersion to Changsha and Guangzhou in November this year, where we are hoping to leverage on this wave of Chinese F&B brands entering Southeast Asia to bring some of these Southeast Asian practitioners to China to meet these F&B brands or meet with investors, players who are interested in entering this market?
So yeah, so Changsha is interesting. It's actually the F&B innovation capital of China, and it's also home to Chagee, which Chagee shamelessly copied. And but yeah, there's lots of stories, and so you're going to put the details of the immersion in the show
Yeah,
notes.
so the details will be below. If you guys are interested in learning more about the F&B scene in China, do check it out. It will be linked in the show notes below. So I think that's all for today's episode of the podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Impulso podcast. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and as usual, do like our podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't. And of course, you can also subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast platforms to stay up to date on the latest happenings and trends in tech, new retail, and the broader digital economy. Thank you, and bye bye.